Alrighty, let's get into it, shall we? Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to be talking all things fantasy football, starter sit questions for week 9 of the 2023 fantasy football season for the next 2 hours. If you guys have a question, be sure to go ahead, type it in the chat, send it via super chat, whichever one you prefer. Of course, make sure to include your scoring format, whether it's standard, half PPR, full PPR. You get 4 points per passing touchdown, 6 points, a point per first down, point per carry, completion, all that kind of jazz matters. So be sure to go ahead and give as much context as possible so that I can accurately answer the questions to the best of my ability. I hope you guys are doing well. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button down below, and let's get into answering questions, shall we? Already have 2 notifications. What is this? Josh Norman elevated from practice squad. Yep, that's expected. And then the Dolphins left tackle activated from the IR, which is good. I mean, that's going to help protect Tua for, I don't even know if he's, playing tomorrow. I don't even know if he's in Germany, but I guess we'll see. Hope everyone's doing well. There's a fair share of injuries this week. I don't think it's to the point where we're in absolute shambles like the last couple weeks, but I think we're in a solid spot as of late. But yeah, if you have any injury questions as to whether or not a player will be going tomorrow, be sure to ask, and I'll try to see if I can give you the most context possible in regards to the injury reports and what I've kind of discovered from earlier this morning and last night. Okay, we had a question that came in via super chat from RR. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate that. Says Ford or Keontae Ingram in a full PPR. Yeah, I'm not playing Keontae Ingram. With Clayton Tune most likely starting tomorrow and Keontae Ingram most likely getting probably 15 touches, I would venture to say that Jerome Ford is likely to have just as many touches, but an easier matchup in comparison. When we're talking about running against the Arizona Cardinals defense comparatively to running up against that Cleveland Browns defense. So yeah, I'll take Jerome Ford there. Now, I know many of you may be a little bit concerned as to the usage of Jerome Ford last week. You got to remember Jerome Ford last week, wasn't even expected to play. The expectation was it was going to be, Pierre Strong and Kareem Hunt running that backfield. But late in the week, Jerome Ford practiced on Friday, was a game time decision, was activated. And yes, he didn't see a lot of his work until the fourth quarter, but that was primarily because, again, he was dealing with an injury. So at this point, I would assume that he's going back to being the starting running back of this team. So I would place it as him over Keontae Ingram this week. Thank you for your question, RR. Appreciate that. All right, so let's see here. Somebody in the chat was saying Brian Robinson Jr. or Aaron Jones as our RB2 in a full PPR. So yesterday, and the reason why Aaron Jones is currently the thumbnail of today's episode is primarily because yesterday throughout the press conferences or the interviews that the coaches are mandatorily have to give to the press, they asked him, okay, so how's Aaron Jones looking? He's been limited throughout all of practice. This is like the 3rd consecutive week in which he's been limited with that hamstring injury. And then Matt LaFleur, the head coach and the primary play caller of the Green Bay Packers, did say, we're ready to, let him loose this week. So my assumption is that instead of having a 50-50 split like it was last week in terms of offensive snaps, offensive touches, in terms of rushing attempts and receiving utilization, instead of that being the case, I think it might tilt more to that 75-25 split of Aaron Jones getting a lot of the opportunity. So in that specific scenario, if I'm talking about Brian Robinson Jr. and Aaron Jones, I'd like to give Aaron Jones the benefit of the doubt. In a full PPR, he's going to get the full workload and be the Aaron Jones that we drafted or we know that he's capable of being. Let's see here. Where is this? Trade Collins for Marquise Brown. I don't mind that. Trading Nico Collins for Marquise Brown. I think the association and the implication of Marquise Brown with Kyler Murray being a higher valued, option. I mean, honestly, I think it makes sense to make that move. I think Marquise Brown going forward will have a lot more value than people are giving him credit for. I mean, thus far this season, he's been good even with Josh Dobbs. And from what we saw early last season in association with Kyler, he was incredible. He's a wide receiver 1. He was a top 12 player at the position, while he was healthy and prior to him going to the injured reserve last season. So I'm not mad at that idea. Amari Cooper or Zay Flowers. Deshaun Watson's playing tomorrow, guys, right? It's not going to be one of these flukes where they say he's going to play and then he doesn't. If Deshaun Watson's playing tomorrow, I'm inclined to consider playing Amari Cooper, but at this current moment, I'd probably lean towards Zay Flowers there. Gus Bus, Tank Dell, Rashee Rice, or Jahan Dotson in the PPR. I think I'd still play Gus Edwards there. I feel like It's too much opportunity given up. Like Tank Dell, tough to trust. Rashee Rice, incredibly difficult matchup against that secondary. Jahan Dotson probably can get himself a very safe 5 catches, 50 yards. If you're just going for base floor, you can get it there. He has potential upside. We talked about it yesterday in the Hidden Gems video in regards to, his target opportunity. 18 targets in the last 2 weeks, playing a lot more overall snaps within the slot position due to the absence of Curtis Samuel in the last 2 weeks. With that overall uptick, higher volume of opportunity, he could end up being the better play, but I think I'd probably, kind of lean towards Gus Edwards and in the hopes that they're going to continue to run the rock as well as they have. I know that their starting right tackle is a game-time decision, Morgan Moses. He's been one of the better run-blocking offensive linemen in the National Football League over the course of the last 3-4 years now. So that would be a huge loss in his absence, but we'll have to keep that monitored as to whether or not the game-time decision gets him activated and ready to go tomorrow. Okay, a couple more questions sent in via Super Chat. Greatly appreciate you guys doing that. Before I go ahead and read those, later today, throughout the live stream, I will be heading on over to Underdog Fantasy and putting together a couple pick'em slips. One that I just wanted to go ahead and show you guys really quickly before I start answering questions, just so that we're all on the same page. Currently, right now, there's a play on Underdog that is LeBron James 0.5 just points. So take advantage of this. I think tip-off, technically, is at 4 p.m. Yeah, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So 3 hours from now. So you can go ahead and put together a slip with that. It's featured for right now. I think it should be available to everyone. So just so we're all on the same page, take advantage of that before it disappears as a free play for this weekend. Besides that free play, for those of you who are new to Underdog Fantasy, you guys want my rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season. Of course, check out the link down below. Use code Andrew. Make a first-time deposit minimum of $10. Again, it's just one first-time deposit. I'll send you my rankings every single Sunday morning. Half PPR, full PPR, flex, all of it every single Sunday for the remainder of the season. And of course, you can also take advantage of, well, not that one. You can also take advantage of Lamar Jackson 0.5 total yards for Sunday's overall games to go ahead and get those, plays going. But yeah, the map to the right, the left side of the screen, my right, your left, doesn't matter. To the left side of the screen determines your eligibility. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's answer some questions. We had Patrick Baker. Patrick, thank you very much. Coming in with the Thanos picture. Greatly appreciate that. Says, I played Deontay Johnson on Monday. I think you meant Thursday. No problem. PPR. Yeah, Deontay Johnson was incredible. Now, I know DeAndre Hopkins was a little bit less of an upside player. He did have 11 targets. So the opportunity was there, and I think that the opportunity will continue to be there as the weeks progress with Will Levis. So that is promising for the value of D-Hop, which was at an all-time low just a couple weeks back. But yeah, Deontay Johnson looking fantastic. If it wasn't for the fact that George Pickens doesn't know how to drag one of his toes, he would have also had a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, well, actually, it was on that drive in which he scored a touchdown eventually that earlier on in the drive, he did drop a touchdown. But either way, doesn't matter. Great overall play on Thursday. We'd love to see it. Your follow-up question is 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs, and a flex. Okay, so we're starting the rest of it. Terry McLaurin, Nico Collins. I need to pick 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs. Okay. So, Patrick, you need to pick 4 players, but you've only sent names of 4 players. Do you have a follow? Let me see if Patrick Baker. Okay, here we go. I got the rest of your team. Thank you, Patrick. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. So you have, for wide receivers, you have McLaurin, you have Nico Collins, you have Chris Godwin, you have Marquise Hollywood Brown, you have James Cook, Mixon, and Rachaad White. Okay, so in a full PPR, if you need 2 running backs, the 2 that I would probably roll with this week is, I kind of want to play Rachaad White. I think I play Mixon alongside of Rachaad White there, 1-2, as your running backs. As for your 1 wide receiver, I'd probably suggest rolling with Chris Godwin. As for your flex, it's between James Cook and McLaurin or Nico Collins. At that point, let's think about this. Cincinnati matchup, New England Patriots, okay. So for now, I'd go Godwin, Mixon, Rachaad White, and McLaurin there. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. All right, we had a question from Ibrahim Yusuf. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. You could just send me messages on Patreon. I don't know if you already did send me a message on Patreon, and I haven't checked this morning, but you could just send it to me there, man. You don't have to keep sending it super chats, but I greatly appreciate it, Ibrahim. Says, thoughts on Kyren rest of season and trade Thielen for Jefferson or keep Thielen? If you can trade Thielen for Jefferson, I think you should. I mean, just think about it this way. Justin Jefferson is an elite wide receiver. He's in a category of himself, maybe Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. I guess AJ Brown as of late has kind of vied for that top tier. Like the top 4 wide receivers are there for sure. So even though he does get a pretty significant downgrade in terms of the quarterback play that he has, he is still a good enough wide receiver to where I think he can elevate that quarterback's play and still be extremely valuable and absolutely be more valuable than Thielen rest of season, in my opinion. So I'm comfortable assuming that if in fact you still have to wait, let's say for example, Justin Jefferson doesn't play this week, he doesn't play the following week, he comes back in week 11. If you can survive a couple weeks without the services of Thielen and you'll still be able to make the playoffs up until you get Jefferson back into your lineup, I'm comfortable doing that. But I guess it just depends on what your scenario is. If you've got a losing record already, it could be very difficult to make a move as such. Because again, you need the services of Thielen right now to try to help you win. As for your prior question there, Ibrahim, rest of season value of Kyren Williams. As soon as he comes back, he is the clear starting back. There may be some more opportunities going in the direction of Darrell Henderson and or Royce Freeman, but it's not going to be enough to diminish the value of Kyren Williams. He's still probably going to get 80+% of the overall snaps and touches within the backfield because, he is their guy. He's the favorite back. He's the guy that supplanted Cam Akers to being traded at that point. So I'm not too worried about him. As soon as he comes back, he's definitely that lower end RB1 conversation. Just depends on how much receiving utilization and potential opportunity he has. Depends on Matthew Stafford's potential health late in the season. But like I mentioned earlier this week already, in the absence of Matthew Stafford, you go back to late last season, Cam Akers was an unstoppable machine of putting up like 15 fantasy points a week from weeks 13 through 18 of last year. So we have seen even in the absence of their starting quarterback, this offense can still run the ball pretty effectively. Thank you for your question, Ibrahim. We're moving on to a question from Bruce. Bruce Cowdrey, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate that, Bruce. Bruce says, flex full PPR, main slate. Douglas, okay, so that's DeMario Douglas, Pops Douglas, Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, or Jahan Dotson. All right, if I'm picking my favorite flex out of those 4 in a full PPR, I want to play Douglas. Second, I would probably end up rolling with... second is probably Jahan Dotson. Third is probably... I kind of want to play Michael Thomas against Chicago. The issue that I have with Michael Thomas is like... there is a very high likelihood, or higher likelihood than many other offenses in the National Football League, of that team getting into the red zone consistently and Derek Carr not throwing a touchdown. Now, luckily for us, in the last couple of weeks, we have seen him throw at least 1 touchdown in each of the last 3 games he has participated in, which is great. But there's always the looming threat now of Taysom Hill being far more, implemented within this offense in comparison to the first half of the season. So at this point, I'd probably just go Douglas, Dotson, Cooks, and Thomas. Run it that way. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. Michael Barton sends in a question. Thank you, Michael. Greatly appreciate it. Michael says, PPR, Amari Cooper, Puka Nacua, or Pop Douglas as my wide receiver 2. Okay. If Matthew Stafford plays, Puka Nacua is the answer, first and foremost. No question about it. If not, I'd go with Amari Cooper second, and I go with Douglas third. Second question, Downs, Addison, or DJ Moore. Downs, I don't know if he's going to play. He's been limited in Thursday and Friday's practice. He didn't practice on Wednesday. So we know that he's dealing with a bit of an injury. If in fact he does suit up and play, in a full PPR, it's kind of hard not to trust him, especially considering how great he has been as of late. So at the moment, under the assumption that he does play, I'd probably go Downs. Actually, let me think about this. Addison versus with a backup quarterback. Yeah, so this is what I would probably do. Even if Downs plays. Now, actually, I'll just be safe with it. I'll go Downs, Addison, and DJ Moore in that order. I want to play Addison over Downs because I actually think Addison's going to score a touchdown this week. As crazy as it may seem, even with a backup quarterback, I think there's still a chance taking on Atlanta's defense. But for now, we'll just play it safe. I think in terms of a full PPR scoring format, there's such a safe floor with Downs catching the ball 6 times for 70 yards or even more, to where he can just get himself 12, 13 to 15 points without even scoring a touchdown, and then you're just safe and good to go. But the upside play is certainly Addison, and we both know that. As for your follow-up question, okay, there's actually 4 questions. The third question is Taysom Hill or McBride. Now that Amari Mercado is out, I think Michael Wilson is dealing with a bit of an injury, may not play this week. if there are less and less options within that offense, I would slowly begin to, in a full PPR, pivot towards Trey McBride. So if in fact Michael Wilson's not active for tomorrow's game, which let me go ahead and check the injury report just to make sure I'm accurate in that. Let's see here. Yeah, so Michael Wilson did not practice all week long. He didn't practice a single time. So if in fact he's out, if it's just going to be Marquise Hollywood Brown, Greg Dortch, and Trey McBride on the field, I would assume that Trey McBride hauls in at least 10 targets within that game because they'll be throwing for majority of the contest anyway. So with that overall assumption, in a full PPR, it would probably be McBride over Taysom Hill in that scenario. As for your last question, Stevenson or Tony Pollard, yeah, I'd much rather play Tony Pollard. Stevenson, even in great matchups, still flounders a lot of his opportunities. So I know Tony Pollard has been relatively inconsistent. Actually, he's been consistently bad. Let's just put it that way. He has been consistently bad for fantasy purposes. And even though that has been the case, I think he'll be fine this week. Thank you. Moving on, Jonathan with a question. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Appreciate you. Jonathan Cushman says, in a full PPR scoring format, all right, let's see here. Full PPR, we have Hurts, Walker, Hall, St. Brown, Olave, Ingram, Kyren Williams with Carr, Cooper, Rice. Should I look to trade or stick with this team? I'm 4-4, second place currently. 4-4 is second place in your league, huh? You must be tied with second place with a bunch of other teams. That's rare. Typically by now, second place in a lot of the leagues that I play in, I've either got 5 or 6 wins at this point to be second place. So yeah, that's got to be a really competitive league where everyone's just, knocking each other out. As for making any moves, Hall is a great play rest of the season. I think Walker, depending on the utilization of Charbonnet, is a to be determined kind of scenario. May look to potentially move him because a lot of the overall interviews that Pete Carroll has given this week, I mean, he just cannot stop talking about Zach Charbonnet and how great of a full-time player he is and how much they need him within this offense and how the 1 week that he missed, they were desperately in need of his overall services. So Walker could eventually lose some touches going forward, which does concern me. But Hall, Hurts, St. Brown, Olave's fine. Ingram's a great play. Kyren Williams, once he returns, is great. Amari Cooper, once we have Deshaun Watson into the conversation, is great. Rashee Rice has played very well this season. Carr is a backup quarterback to the eventual bye week of Jalen Hurts, which is, if I'm not mistaken, next week. Will fill in just nicely. So I think it's just a matter of, can we move Kenneth Walker? If we can go buy low on a Tony Pollard, I would legitimately do it. Thank you, Jonathan. Wade says, full PPR. RB1 is Joe Mixon. RB2 is Breece Hall. Fantastic. We love to see that. Should I flex Aaron Jones, Jacoby Myers, or Rashee Rice? Or Puka Nacua? Thanks. In a full PPR scoring format, Wade, if in fact actually, let me just check this before I keep saying if in fact he plays. So in regards to week 9, the Los Angeles Rams play against the Green Bay Packers in the morning. So we'll know prior to the 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time kickoff as to whether or not, so throughout tomorrow's morning's live stream from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. PST, we'll know whether or not Matthew Stafford is available. In that scenario, if in fact Matthew Stafford is active, Puka Nacua is the start. If he is not, I would play Aaron Jones. Thank you for your question, Wade. Moving on to Heisenberg. Says start 1 running back and start 2 wide receivers. Okay, sounds good. Let's see here. So what do we have here? We have Ford, Singletary. Okay. And then Terry, Amari, and Godwin. Cool. Ford and Singletary, I'd much rather play Ford. I feel far more comfortable in that scenario. Singletary hasn't been great this season. The offensive line of the Texans hasn't been great. They really haven't emphasized running the ball much unless they were in positive game scripts. That's only ever been against the Pittsburgh Steelers in my recent memory in terms of them mounting a huge lead and then just running the ball in the second half. So for now, I'll play Ford there over Singletary. And then as for your 2 wide receivers that I would suggest between Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, and Godwin, I probably... let me see Arizona's injury report again. I think their secondary is healthy now. I'd probably play Terry McLaurin alongside of... I'd play Terry McLaurin alongside of Godwin there this week. Thank you. Chris All-In says full PPR, 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, and 1 flex. We have Deontay Foreman, we have Alvin Kamara, we have Aaron Jones, Singletary, CeeDee Lamb, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Demario Douglas, and Michael Pittman Jr. Howell or Prescott. Okay, So Howell versus Prescott, I'd like to play Prescott there. I think the matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles is actually an advantageous one. I mean, when Sam Howell can go into Philadelphia and put up a fair share of points, I think that just kind of gives you an idea as to what the potential is for teams against this defense for the remainder of the season. As for your primary question, though, as for wide receivers, running backs, and a flex, between the running backs that you have, I'm absolutely playing Alvin Kamara. So that's your RB1. Done. As for your two wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb has to be played. It's a great overall play. You can stack him with Prescott this week. And then your follow-up wide receiver is Michael Pittman Jr. Of course, he's been playing extremely well. And if Josh Downs ends up missing, he'll have even more opportunity within the given week. Even if Josh Downs plays, we know that Michael Pittman Jr. in terms of target share, target opportunity, and volume still is the number one in terms of air yards, all that kind of jazz. So I'm not too worried there. So Kamara, Lamb, Pittman, and then as for your flex, in a full PPR, I probably end up going with Aaron Jones there in that scenario. And again, Prescott at quarterback. Thank you, Chris All. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Let me just answer a couple questions in the chat before I continue on with some of these super chat questions. We had a question from Tyrone Jenkins in the chat. Says, I need a bench a wide receiver in a full PPR. Flowers, Higgins, Lockett, or Demario Douglas. If I'm sitting one this week out of the bunch, against Baltimore, I'd probably honestly just sit Demario Douglas out of the bunch. I'd rather start the other three. I think Demario Douglas, yes, he's a hidden gem, and there's a reason for that. Hidden gems aren't guarantee smash plays, and the assumption is that he gets a higher volume of targets, right? There's no guarantee of these things in comparison to these three other receivers that are already proven commodities, and I already kind of trust them in that scenario. Paul Getz says, can we get Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones this week? Okay, so let's say, for example, we're deciding between the two of them. If I'm playing one of those two quarterbacks, I'm playing Deshaun Watson. I'd much rather play him over Daniel Jones, primarily because there's no Darren Waller available for Daniel Jones, which does scare me. And there's going to be a lot of running from Saquon Barkley throughout that entirety of the game, I would assume. Darren Hill in the chat was asking Demario Douglas or Hollywood Brown. I'd take Demario Douglas at that point. Mark K in the chat was asking Chuba Hubbard or DK Metcalf in a half PPR. In a half PPR scoring format against Baltimore, he's got to have a monster game to be able to outscore. I'd probably play Chuba Hubbard there, to be honest, in a half PPR. Thanks for the question. All right, moving on to Andy, sending a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, after Diggs plus Bijan, okay, I need one wide receiver, one running back, and one flex. We have Puka, Addison, Lockett, Ford, Hunt, Ramondre. Cheers as always. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. So, as for your question, again, I'm gonna go back to the well of, if Matthew Stafford plays, Puka Nacua is your number one wide receiver. So under the assumption, let's say, for example, that happens, he'd be your wide receiver one, Ford would be your RB1, and Addison would be your flex. Under the assumption in which that does not occur, and Matthew Stafford does not play tomorrow morning, Addison would be your wide receiver one, and you would play both Ford and Hunt as your RB and flex there. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. Moving on to Rowett. Rowett, thank you very much. Says, hi, Andrew. I have a conundrum for this week. Okay, let's see here. What do we have? I basically ended up with Tua, Waddle, Mostert, Achane. I also have Kamara, Amon-Ra, Ayuk, and T. Higgins. Should I go for Tyreek Hill? What would you give up? Well, okay, here's the thing. Rowett, next week the Miami Dolphins are on bye week. So I guess technically you have a chance to, you could go for him and just have a full Dolphin squad. Do I love it? No. Again, you're one injury away from a disaster on your hands. But, I mean, at this point, if you're just going to build the infinity gauntlet of Dolphins players, yeah, you can try to go for it. I'd assume you'd be able to potentially give away Amon-Ra and another piece to try to get Tyreek Hill. But you're going to, I mean, it's a pretty big give. You're going to have to give a lot. Amon-Ra, and it has to be another solid piece to get Tyreek Hill, considering how much upside he has. But, yeah, I think putting all of your eggs in the Miami Dolphins basket isn't terrible. I mean, in terms of, let's see here, Dolphins schedule. I want to see what their fantasy playoff schedule looks like. Let's see. Fantasy playoffs, they play against Dallas, should be a good game. They play against Baltimore, another good game, and then they play against, okay, actually it's New York Jets, Dallas, and then Baltimore. Whew. I mean, those are no jokes of defenses. Should be good games across the board, but those are no jokes. Look, I still think that they're going to be a pretty good team going forward, but putting all your eggs in one basket. If we're at this point where we're like, hey, let's just go get Tyreek Hill and complete the gauntlet, let's go for it. Just move Amon-Ra and give him another piece, maybe like an Ayuk, see if he'll take it. If he doesn't, I don't know if you have enough to give unless you're giving Amon-Ra and Mostert for that kind of a trade. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. Futuristic Old School. Hope you're doing well. Long time no see. Says James Cook, Chris Godwin, Zach Moss, Darrell Henderson, Singletary, half PPR, start 3. If I'm starting 3 of the 4, I would start James Cook, Chris Godwin, and Zach Moss this week. Thank you, Futuristic. Much appreciated. We have Bolster. Says, put my question in the chat, Andrew. All right, cool. Bolster. All right, Bolster says, pick 2 in a full PPR. Aaron Jones, Demario Douglas, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Boyd, or Rashid Shaheed. If I'm picking 2 in a full PPR, just off of reception volume and potential for upside, I'd go with Aaron Jones and Demario Douglas there. I know that each of the last 2 weeks, Tyler Boyd down in the red zone, been a huge option. Same thing with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Rashid Shaheed scored a touchdown himself last week. I think Demario Douglas, in terms of the full PPR format, if we're just excluding potential touchdown upside, which he obviously will have within this offense because he'll be the number 1 option, but in terms of just yardage, reception count, and just being able to have the highest scoring flat floor for, kind of production, Demario Douglas is the safest play there. And I think they're not lying in Green Bay when they're saying they're going to, let Aaron Jones get cut loose. So I think he's going to have himself a monster game today, or tomorrow, excuse me. So yeah, I'll take Aaron Jones and Demario Douglas there. The 4th best option out of that group is probably Jackson Smith, though. Or the 3rd best option, excuse me. All right, moving on to Mikey's question. Mikey S. says, Collins, Flowers, Jacoby Myers, Taysom Hill, Brandon Cooks, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, full PPR. If we're looking for pure upside out of this group, I'm probably playing, let's think about this. If we're playing pure upside, Collins number 1, Flowers number 2, and I probably play Brandon Cooks as the number 3 if we're just playing for pure upside. Thank you, Mikey. Appreciate it. In a full PPR. Eclipse says, start 2 full PPR, Gabriel Davis, Demario Douglas, Rashee Rice, James Cook, Tank Dell. If I'm starting 2 in a full PPR scoring format, I'd probably play both the receivers that you first and foremost mentioned, Gabe Davis and Demario Douglas. I mean, Gabriel Davis has extremely high upside and has extremely low downside. Like, his floor of production is literally 2 points in a full PPR. His upside is 20. His floor is, a solid 13, 14. And to be honest, I think I'm willing to take that kind of a risk play. And then Demario Douglas alongside of him. If James Cook got more utilization within the receiving game, if James Cook scored rushing touchdowns, I'd feel more confident rolling with him. But considering, Josh Allen has scored a rushing touchdown in 5 of the last 6 games, the looming threat of Latavius Murray always exists. And of course, they have even more receiving options with this 11 personnel bunch with Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid getting themselves more utilization down in the red zone. It definitely does impact James Cook a lot. So I'll go with Davis and I'll go with Douglas there. Thank you. Stephen Yang sends in a question. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It says, looking for high upside, pick 2.5 PPR, Moss, Addison, Flowers, Dotson, and Brandon Cooks. I feel like the upside is Moss and Addison. Addison's kind of proven that, 7 games, or 8 games, 7 touchdowns. I understand it's another quarterback. I have a hard time benching him still. I think he's a good enough talent that regardless of the quarterback dip, Jaren Hall knows how to run this offense. And he knows, hey, I got to get the ball to the best player's hands. And Addison's probably going to be that for a majority of the day, if not, TJ Hawkinson. So I want to play Addison, and I also want to play Moss because even in Jonathan Taylor getting himself, 10 rushing attempts, 12, double-digit rushing attempts, getting himself receiving utilization every single week, Zach Moss is either just as valuable or outscoring him in these scenarios. The fact that they take on Carolina, that's a huge overall play in terms of matchups. The best matchup of the position in terms of teams who cannot stop the run. The only issue that I have with Zach Moss, in which I'll give you the contingency as to if, in fact, Zach Moss doesn't play tomorrow, because Zach Moss did not practice on Friday. So we have no clue whether or not that is just a routine thing and they're just kind of keeping him fresh, or rather that's an injury that may have popped up throughout the course of the week. If, in fact, that is an injury that popped up, the next play out of the bunch in terms of upside would probably be Dotson. Thank you, Steven. ER sends in a question. It says full PPR, flex one, James Cook, Aaron Jones, Rashi Rice. Lean towards Rice. I'd play Aaron Jones there. You can play Rice. That's perfectly fine. I think it could be a shootout there in Germany. We're hoping for it to be. So we, throughout tomorrow's live stream, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're not in a complete disaster situation. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Patrick Baker has a follow-up question. Says, second league, pick 2, and a flex. Okay. We have Chris Godwin, Lockett, Marquise Brown, Tank Dell. Dell is predicted to get more than the rest of on the NFL League app. Yeah, here's the thing. The projections on these league apps or Yahoo or Sleeper or NFL.com or all these projections, it's a system that they run that often we shouldn't put much value into. Like if you guys look at projections and then what ends up happening at the end of the week, you will see it's an extremely inaccurate way to predict. And obviously they're just using like metrics in terms of like potential for, okay, matchup, their opportunity thus far this season, their season long averages, and then depending on how that matchup looks, it kind of like diverts it one way or the other, 0.5 points this way or the other way. Otherwise, it's just pretty consistent across the board. If you go look at like projections for a singular player for the remainder of the season, they're relatively identical throughout the entire season because they're just basing it off averages. They're not really taking into account high upside weeks or downside weeks. They're just playing averages. So I wouldn't really put too much value into projections on these apps. That being said, if I'm picking 2 out of the 4 that you mentioned, I would like to play Chris Godwin number 1 and Tyler Lockett number 2. Thank you. DeAndre Warren with a question. Thank you very much, DeAndre. Says Tank Dell or Demario Douglas for week 10 buys for Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown. All right, let me look at the week 10 schedule real quick. Let's see here. The Patriots take on the Colts. Okay. And I think that's in Germany as well. And then who is the other player that you were mentioning? Tank Dell in week 10. Let me see here. Against Cincinnati. Yeah, I'd probably end up playing Demario Douglas there. Time will tell. Let's see how this week kind of transpires, but I would venture to say it's pretty safe with Demario Douglas there. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. We had another question from, where did it go? Where did it go? Okay, cool. All right, I've almost caught up on some of these Super Chat questions. For those of you who are joining us this afternoon, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. We'll be here for the next hour and a half answering starter sit questions in regards to week 9 of the 2023 fantasy football season. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a solid. Click the like button down below. Takes 2 seconds out of your day, but it continues to support the channel, boost the algorithm so that I can continue to bring you guys daily fantasy football content for the entirety of the season. Greatly appreciate it. Tomorrow morning, do not forget, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'll be here on the channel live streaming for 4 straight hours, answering questions. We will have rankings up to date on screen for running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, kickers, and defenses. But for those of you guys who want flex rankings, full PPR rankings, all that kind of jazz, you can either go ahead, check out the Patreon. There's a link in the description, or you can also go ahead, head on over to Underdog. If in fact the map to the bottom left of the screen determines your eligibility and you are eligible, you can go ahead and make a first-time deposit minimum of $10 using code Andrew and get those rankings sent to you every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, all encompassing full PPR, half PPR, flex rankings, by tier, by position. So if you guys are interested, be sure to take advantage of that. And of course, like I mentioned a little bit ago, at the back end of the stream, probably the last 30 minutes, I'll be putting together a couple pick'em slips with your guys' help. Last week, when we were putting together pick'em slips on our Saturday live stream, I was taking a lot of suggestions, man. It was a disastrous Sunday. That was a disaster of a Sunday. In terms of those overall, pick'em slips going through, a lot of them whiffed horribly, but it's just the nature of the game. Sometimes they put the numbers as to where they are on purpose, right? It's got to be difficult. Otherwise, if it was easy, everybody would be making money. All right. Anyway, let's see here. After DeAndre Warren's question, we had a question from Old J Running. It says full PPR, pick one to flex Mostert, Garrett Wilson, or Puka Nacua. Thank you very much, Old J. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, so as for the 3 potential options, they're all fantastic. Like objectively, they're all incredibly great plays. If in fact Matthew Stafford plays, he's the guy that I'd play Puka Nacua there. Like easily, I play Puka Nacua. If in fact he is not active, I would then pivot to just playing. Oh, well, okay. So yeah, that's the thing. I'm still going to pivot to playing Garrett Wilson there. I think Raheem Mostert could be a solid play. I think Garrett Wilson in a full PPR has more upside of potential points. So yeah, in this current position, you don't worry about Germany game. You go straight into the 10 a.m. game. If Matthew Stafford's active in Green Bay, you play Puka. I don't think he's going to be active. They elevated a practice squad quarterback today, and it's going to be 30 degrees in Green Bay tomorrow morning. So my assumption is with a thumb, he's probably not going to play. So I would just suggest playing Garrett Wilson out of the group in a full PPR. Jay, thank you. Sean Bonds said, was offered 2 trades, Ford, Hunt, Puka, and Kyler Murray for Breece Hall and also Ford. Wait, for Breece Hall. Okay, so that's the one question. And also Ford, Hunt, and Downs for Pacheco. Was offered. Okay, so someone wants to give you all of these players for just one singular player, huh? Okay, so the first question purely depends on what your quarterback position looks like. Like if you're in trouble and you're like, okay, I really need Kyler, I would say let's be careful with picking up Kyler in that scenario comparatively. And then my follow-up question, primarily because he's coming off an injury, Kyler Murray's fantasy value throughout his entire career has purely been predicated on his rushing ability. You guys can go look at the stats. Very seldom does he ever have games to where he's purely just sitting in the pocket throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very seldom. A lot of those games, there's a huge uptick of fantasy points from 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, or 60 rushing yards and being able to get himself like a 2-point conversion. Like the volume of points that he gets typically has to do with the rushing workload. If in fact that ACL is good to go and there's no really hesitation from him running the ball, then he could be a fantastic play, top 10 for the remainder of the season. But it's just a matter of what kind of quarterback play you currently have. And then the follow-up to that is, if you bring in Ford and Hunt, I don't really want to start both. I kind of just want to start one of them every week, but you kind of can't, considering both of them can very easily steal a touchdown from the other. Puka Nacua is a great overall play there in terms of going forward as a wide receiver, especially if in fact we get Stafford back starting week 11. So that'd be fine. But I probably would want to know more context as to the rest of your team. In a vacuum, 4 for 1 is pretty crazy. And I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I think the 3 for 1 is fine as well. It just depends on what kind of what the rest of your team really looks like. Because without the context of it, and I don't even know what your scoring format is, it's tough to say objectively one way or the other. But for right now, I think bringing in a huge haul for some of these players isn't a bad idea. Michael Barton with a follow-up question says, last question of the day, flex, Amari Cooper, Addison, or DJ Moore. If I'm playing one of the 3, I'd like to play Addison. If you're sketched out about Addison, you could play Amari Cooper. That would be the second suggestion, but I don't think I'm playing DJ Moore this week. As for and that's it. That's your final question. Thank you. Appreciate it, Michael. Moving on to V. Dot. Says, thoughts on Kyler Murray when he returns? I'm glad I just mentioned everything I did. I've been streaming quarterback between Stroud, Love, Carr, etc. Will he be a top 10 to 15 quarterback? Wow, it is crazy how I just went on that rant just to have that question answered. Perfect timing, huh? Perfect timing. The universe works in very interesting ways. So yeah, at this point, I'm just gonna reiterate, if the rushing yardage is not there, we're in a little bit of trouble with him. Purely. I mean, like if I go look up Kyler Murray's season stats, let's see here. In terms of, where is it? Okay, here we go. His best passing season, 26 passing touchdowns in 16 games. So 26 divided by 16, that's 1.6 touchdowns per game passing. That's not a terrible number. It's pretty solid. He had, 3,971 passing yards in 16 games. So about 250 passing yards in a 1.5 passing touchdowns per game. So on average, what is that? 8, 9, 10 points off passing yardage plus 4, let's say plus 6. So let's say he gets 16 points per week on average. He can be just as valuable as Stroud, Carr, Howell. But if he can get himself the rushing utilization that we know he's capable of, assuming that ACL injury hasn't really had him scared of running, the guy literally, I mean, I go back to even last season, 418 rushing yards in 11 games. Actually, it really wasn't even 11 games because that 11th game he tore his ACL. So it's 418 yards in 10 games. That's 42 rushing yards per game and 3 rushing touchdowns. So just the points there alone, it's over a touchdown of fantasy points. If he can run, we're in a good spot. If he can't, we're in trouble. Bacon says full PPR, pick 3, Higgins, Nico, Flowers, Rice. If I'm picking 3 for this week, I'll take Higgins, Nico Collins, and Zay Flowers. Thank you. Appreciate it, Bacon. Taif Abdullah says, traded Stevenson and Mostert for Kupp and Stroud in a PPR. Under the assumption that you need a quarterback, I'm fine with that. I mean, Mostert eventually in about, week 11? I think that's when HN returns. Once, in fact, that takes place, it's kind of over for Mostert. Stevenson hasn't done much, so bringing in Kupp there is perfectly fine. Because the fact that the Rams did not send Matthew Stafford to the injured reserve is a great sign. So that's fantastic. And then, Stroud's just kind of a bonus piece there. So, I'm fine with that. Thank you. Moving on to Kevin Pearn. Says, hey, Andrew, Royce Freeman or Devin Singletary this week? That's a really good question. The Green Bay Packers are terrible in terms of run stop defense. They could play well under the... Could they play well? Let me actually look something up real quick. I just want to reference something just so that I'm not completely crazy and not misremembering. All right, let's see here. Okay. If I'm playing one of the two and if Matthew Stafford is inactive tomorrow, I'd play Singletary there, Kevin. Thank you. Moving on to Vlad. Vlad, thank you very much. Says, what 3 do I play out of the following 4? James Cook, Bijan Robinson, Kareem Hunt, and Pacheco. I would sit against the Cardinals. Man. Okay, so for sure you're playing Bijan Robinson and you're playing Isaiah Pacheco. I think those are the clear in a way, like you got to play those guys. As for Kareem Hunt or James Cook, I think I'm honestly leaning towards playing Kareem Hunt against Arizona just because of how bad they've played in terms of stopping the run. James Cook's a solid play. I just don't see as much upside in his overall future. So I'd probably just roll with Hunt. I think if James Cook scores a touchdown, it's easily him. But, I mean, the volume at which he has scored a touchdowns this season already, it does scare me. So I'd probably just roll with Kareem Hunt there. Thank you. Giovanna Thomas says, with Palmer out, should I start Mayfield over Herbert? Oh, man, Herbert was already a really, really sketchy play earlier this week based on where I had him ranked. Again, that Jets defense has made a lot of quarterbacks look terrible, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same thing to Herbert this week. So are we playing Mayfield ahead of him against Houston? I don't love the Houston matchup. I don't mind the play, though. I'll tell you that much. I am worried about Herbert to an extent to where I'm not mad at the idea of playing Mayfield ahead of him in the given week. Let's see here. 1650H says, AK, full PPR, pick 1 for the flex, Gus, Nico Collins, or Henderson. Yeah, it's either Gus Edwards or Nico Collins. If Nico Collins plays as well as I expect him to, he should be able to outscore Gus Edwards. But for right now, just off of, hey, let's not make any mistakes and let's just kind of play it safe with the floor of production, I play Gus Edwards there. But yeah, in a full PPR, everything leans in Nico Collins' direction in terms of the game script, in terms of the injuries that is sustained to this offense, running back and Robert Woods not being available, no Brevin Jordan either. It should be a Nico Collins game. It should be a signature Nico Collins game. I'm just worried considering what happened last week. Infinity and Bijan sends in a question, says, I need to start 2 in a full PPR scoring for my RB2, AJ Dillon, Latavius Murray, Keontae Ingram. Okay. If you're starting one of the 3 players in a full PPR, I'd probably end up playing Keontae Ingram under the assumption that he just catches a boatload of passes out of the backfield for majority of the game. Because outside of that, AJ Dillon, I don't know if you'll get as much of a workload going forward, considering the high utilization of Aaron Jones this week. Latavius Murray is not a startable option in a PPR. As for your follow-up question, Jake Ferguson, Demario Douglas, Quentin Johnston. As for your flex players, in a full PPR, I'd play Douglas there. So yeah, it's probably Keontae and Douglas. Thank you, Infinity. Appreciate it. Let's see here. There was a couple questions in the chat. Let's see here. New England or Vikings defense this week? Between the two, I would rather play New England's defense. We had a question from, let's see here. Michael Oren says, start 2 full PPR, Moss, Ford, Henderson, Hubbard. In a full PPR, Michael, I play Moss and I probably play Ford. I consider Hubbard as that number 3, but I think he's just slightly behind the other two. Let's see here. Lance says you're live on a Saturday night. I'm live every Saturday. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. Michael Rosado sends in a question, says Njoku or Gerald Everett. It'll be Njoku. You know what? You make a good point. I know the implication of this question. With Deshaun Watson back, is David Njoku a reliable enough tight end going forward? You know what? I don't even know now. Now that I'm thinking about it, with Josh Palmer out, Gerald Everett might be the play there. Yeah, I'd probably play Gerald Everett over David Njoku this week. Rusty Wright says, slight concern with Puka, considering Dell. Thoughts? Yeah, that's fine by me. If Matthew Stafford's not inactive, just play Dell. You'll be fine tomorrow. Thank you. Bruce Cowdrey says, last question, full PPR main slate, 2 out of the 4, Hubbard, Moss, White, and a Cleveland or a Cleveland RB. So you have all Cleveland RBs available. If in fact that's the case, I'd like to play Moss alongside of Ford. Actually, well, you have Rashad White as well. Maybe I play Moss alongside of Rashad White in a full PPR. I think that might be the play. Going Moss and Rashad White there. Thank you. Yes, that is probably the play. Let's see here. SBB in the chat was saying CJ Stroud or Deshaun Watson this week. Let's play CJ Stroud. Let's just be safe with it. I don't want to take any risks with Deshaun Watson. Let him prove to me that he's still healthy. Bill Dance says, need to. Demario Douglas, DJ Moore, Addison. I'll take Douglas and Addison there. Thank you. What do we have here? Okay, the chat just randomly updated while I was scrolling. That's unfortunate. Now I got to find where I was. Where did it go? Okay, Nathan Salazar says, wide receiver 2 wide receivers in a flex. We have DK, Higgins, Puka, Adams. Also trade Olave for Higgins. I'd like to keep Olave over Higgins for the rest of the season. As for the prior question, though, 2 wide receivers, Adams has to play. Okay, so if we're picking just 3 of 4, right? DK, Higgins, Puka, Adams. If we're in a situation where tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., they say Matthew Stafford is inactive, I'd play all other wide receivers over Puka Nacua. I'd play DK, I'd play Higgins, and I'd play Adams. If, in fact, we're in a scenario in which it's not that case, Matthew Stafford is active, I play Adams, I play Puka Nacua, and I play DK Metcalf. Thank you. Higgins would be the bench if Matthew Stafford's active. Appreciate it. Mikey S says, thank you. To play Brandon Cooks, needed respected opinion. Okay, greatly appreciate that, Mikey. Thank you. Let's see here. Barlow in the chat was saying McBride or Jake Ferguson this week in a half PPR. I'd probably just play Jake Ferguson there. Waller to the IR. Yeah, that was expected. Primarily because if you guys remember, the last 2 seasons, Darren Waller, hamstring injuries have been the end of his season. He has always had hamstring injuries, and then eventually he came back late in the year, but it was over at that point. So if you've got an IR spot, put him there. Otherwise, it's Jover for Darren Waller in 2023, unfortunately. Let's see here. Stevenson or Hubbard? I'd play Hubbard this week, Guillermo. Flowers or Devonta Smith versus Dallas? Carlos, I would play Devonta Smith there. Chris Kreider in the chat was saying start 2 full PPR, Ford, Henderson, Hubbard. I'd play Ford and Hubbard there. Cheese Kurt says, hey, Andrew, hope all is well. It is. Thank you, Cheese Kurt. Between Stroud, Carr, and Howell, who would you start in a 4-point per passing touchdown league? I'd probably go Carr, Stroud, Howell in that order. Carr number 1, Stroud number 2, Howell number 3. Andrew Clark in the chat says, make sure to set back your clocks except for Arizona. Yeah, I don't know why Arizona does that. That's just always the interesting thing. Lockett or JSN? I'd probably just play Lockett there. Arizona, Pats, Vikings, or Giants defense this week. Out of the 4, I don't mind playing the Giants defense. Let's see here. Okay, so now that we've caught up there, we have to go to Dorsey 5001. Let's see. Dorsey's question says, pick one. All right, so number 1. This is actually question number 1. So pick one. Jordan Love, Rashee Rice, or Trey McBride. If you're playing in a super flex league, this is the 2. Okay, so it is a super flex league. Okay, I would suggest playing Jordan Love. In a super flex format, Jordan Love's put up what, like 15 points a week consistently, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go. Let's see here. That's not the link I wanted to click on. I want to go to this one, and then let's look up Jordan Love. Let's see what his weekly production has been. 14.5, 6.5, 15.3. I know he had a terrible game against Las Vegas. I mean, that was just a outlier. 15, 24, 20, 23. I know he hasn't been as good as he was earlier in the year because obviously his really terrible passing completion percentage and inefficiency in the first half of games has really caught up to him. But in comparison to those alternative options, I'll always lean towards the quarterback, especially when it's a quarterback that I have ranked within my top 15. If it was like, hey, do I play? Let's say, for example, you asked me this question on Thursday, right? And you would have said, is it Kenny Pickett, or is it Aiden O'Connell, or is it PJ Walker, or one of these receiving options? I would have went with the receiving options, right? But in the case of a higher tier quarterback, yeah, we'll take the quarterback there in this scenario. Thank you, Dorsey. All right, Brian sends in a question. Brian Kopka says, traded Walker for Aaron Jones and Rachaad White. Okay, I'll take that. That's fine by me. I have no problem at all. I think that's a W. In a full PPR scoring for my starting Lamar, Burrow, Barkley, Jones, Keenan Allen, Waddle, McLaurin. Yeah, listen, I think it's a matter of if, truly, but I think it's also a matter of when it happens. When Aaron Jones is given the full realm of opportunity within this backfield, right? And he starts getting the 65 or 70% of the overall snaps, touches, etc. When that starts to pivot in his direction, he will be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than Kenneth Walker the rest of the way. Because I do really think that Charbonnet is going to start digging into his overall workload. And when that takes place, it'll be just as much as the way that A.J. Dillon contributes into the Green Bay Packers backfield, and that in itself makes them pretty equal value for me rest of the season. Aaron Jones, Walker, assuming Aaron Jones can stay healthy, of course. And then Rachaad White is just your bonus, in which if he just continues to catch the ball out of the backfield as much as he has, I mean, that PPR value is incredible. Also, your follow-up question is flex Cooper or White in the... Okay, let's see here. What is the rest of your team? Okay, Lamar, Burrow, Barkley, Jones, Keenan Allen, Waddle, McLaurin. Okay, yeah, so you have to start the rest of those guys. If I'm starting one of the 2 options there, I'd lean towards playing Rachaad White this week there, Brian. Thank you. All right, moving on to David Diaz. Says, traded ETN and Evans for Justin Jefferson, James Conner. Risky. 12-team league. Lamar, Christian McCaffrey, Conner, Olave, JJ, Andrews, Palmer. First in the league. Any moves going forward? Okay, so it's a risky move. I respect it though. I think it's definitely I'm trying to win it all, and let's see if I can do so with Justin Jefferson leading the way. As for so you can't improve on quarterback. Lamar is set. Christian McCaffrey, you can't really improve on that. JJ, you can't improve on that. Mark Andrews, you can. I mean, you technically can. You can move from Lamar to Jalen Hurts. You can move from Mark Andrews to Travis Kelce, but it's going to cost you more than it should to make an upgrade as such. So really, there's no point in doing so. So RB2 of James Conner is fantastic, especially once Kyler Murray returns. The offense will be just as valuable, even in the absence of Josh Dobbs. So I still think that James Conner will go back to what he was looking like earlier on in the season, which is fantastic. He'll be healthy, ready to go. And again, if you guys have seen James Conner at the back end of the season in the last couple of years, he has been a really dominant fantasy force. So if you have a opportunity of trading for him and really not spending much, not a bad idea. Olave's fine. Palmer as your flex is probably the biggest issue there. You probably just need to get a better flex option if you can make a move. I don't know what kind of bench depth you have, David, but otherwise you got a really solid team there. Moving on to Sean Bonds. He says, quarterback is CJ Stroud. My RBs are Stevenson, Brees, Warren, Charbonnet, Spears, and Pacheco. Okay. My wide receivers are Deontay Johnson, Pittman, London, and Dell. Okay. So as for this context, let me go ahead and let's see now. Control F. So Stevenson, let me actually just copy paste this into a different notepad just so I can reference it once I go look at the rest of your team. Okay, so Control F, Sean Bonds. All right, so Sean's initial question was those trades. So if you have Stevenson, Brees, Warren, Charbonnet, and Pacheco, so you have 3 solid running backs. If you get rid of one of them and you bring in other running backs, okay, so like Stevenson. Okay, so really, if I even get rid of Stevenson, you really just have 2 good running backs that you can consistently play as RB1 and 2, which is Brees Hall and Pacheco. You have Deontay Johnson, Pittman, London, and Dell. London's going to miss a little bit of time, but that's fine. You have Deontay Johnson and Pittman, which have been incredible as of late. So those are really solid options as for wide receivers going forward. If you bring in Puka, that can play in your flex. If you get rid of one of these I don't mind making the Pacheco move. I think the Pacheco move is fine. There, Sean. Bringing in Downs, bringing in those 2 running backs, I think I'm comfortable with that. Now, if you have to lose some players in that overall scenario in which you're dropping some guys, you do have guys like Spears in which you could drop. So that's fine. But yeah, that of the 2 trades, I'd rather keep Brees Hall. Bobo Beyond sends in a question. Thank you, Bobo. Bobo's question is 12-team standard league, Jordan Addison or Jahan Dotson? I think I have to just play Addison. I have to. If you want to play Dotson, you can go for it. I think I'm just going to, I'm going to stick with Addison there. I'm going to hope that his talent alone gets him open to where even a rookie quarterback out of BYU can get the job done. Marco in the chat was asking, Pacheco or Amari Cooper? I'd rather play Pacheco there. Let's see here. Amato in the chat was saying, trust Tony Pollard against Philadelphia or play Ford/Flowers instead. I think I'd play Pollard. I think by principle, if you have Pollard on your team, you have to play him. If you're not going to play Pollard, you just trade him away right now. Let's see here. Let's scroll down. We had a question from Mr. Dang. Says, with Drake London out, opinion on Kadero Hodge. He had himself a decent amount of utilization last week. I just don't know if this offense is going to send him the ball or Van Jefferson more opportunities, because Van Jefferson played the most snaps amongst all wide receivers last week. Kadero Hodge was number 2 for the Atlanta Falcons. If I was going to trust a wide receiver on the Atlanta Falcons, it would be Kyle Pitts. And I know he's a tight end, but I consider him to be a wide receiver. That's the only guy that I would trust this week. I don't know if I want to go as far as potentially picking up and playing Kadero Hodge. It could be like a play like on a best ball format or, a DK, Millie Maker lineup kind of format. But outside of that, it's tough. Let's see here. K Styles sends in a question. Thank you very much for sending in a super chat. Says full PPR. I have Mahomes, Diggs, Lamb, Eckler, Walker, Kincaid, Puka. My bench is DJ Moore, Gabriel Davis, Christian Watson. Any changes to make? The only change I would make is if, in fact, Puka Nacua doesn't have Matthew Stafford, you play Gabriel Davis in your flex. That's the only question that I would suggest this week. Also, top 10 defense this week. I will have those tomorrow morning. Thank you. V says, thanks for answering the question. Flex, Ford or Downs? In a full PPR, in a full PPR, if Downs is healthy, I think he's probably the safer option, and I'd probably just roll with him. Amato Britton says, okay, Amato's question's gone. That's interesting. Aaron sends in a question. Says, sit 1, Hubbard, Ford, Gus, Godwin. Okay. Hubbard, Ford, Gus, Godwin, Rice. If I'm sitting one of the bunch, I think I'm sitting, oh man. Ford, Gus. Yeah, I'm sitting Rashee Rice out of the bunch there, Aaron. Thank you for your question, man. Let's see here. Like the Jeans says full PPR, start Bryce Young or Geno Smith. I'd play Geno Smith there. I think Bryce Young is an okay play based on the matchup alone. But I think at most he scores like 15 points. I think Geno Smith has a little bit higher upside in the given week. Thank you. Moving on to Boxer Card Productions. Hope you're doing well. Long time no see. Says Rice, Demario Douglas, or Singletary PPR. I'll take Demario Douglas there. Thank you. 44S MSU says, traded Tua and Nico Collins for Jalen Hurts. I have AJ Brown and Waddle. Yeah, you're fine. Congratulations, you're good to go. Good trade. Improving that quarterback so you don't have to worry about it. But obviously, you'll need a backup for next week, so be sure to hit the waiver wire before next week arises, so you have that backup option ready to go. Just go look at Week 10 matchups. Like if I'm looking at Week 10 already, in terms of matchups as a whole, like if I don't think Justin Fields is available on your waiver. I'm assuming someone kept him. They take on Carolina on Thursday. I don't know if Justin Fields will be active in that week, but in terms of the overall matchups, in terms of a waiver wire pickup and play, I like the idea of, let's see here. Wow, these are kind of bleak. Like, I don't mind Mac Jones against the Colts. I don't mind. Jeez, man, these are actually not great. Whew. I guess I don't mind Taylor Heineke versus the Cardinals. Baker versus Tennessee's fine. Those are the only ones that I'm like somewhat okay with. Derek Carr versus the Vikings, that could work. Thank you for your question. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Fresh. Says Downs, Jerome Ford, Royce Freeman, Demario Douglas, full PPR. I need 2 of them in the flex. I'd probably go with Ford and Downs there. Thank you for your question, Fresh. Moving on from Fresh's question, we have Daniel Barnes. Says PPR, pick 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, and 1 flex. Swift, Bijan, Pittman, Puka, Garrett Wilson. Okay, so going into this week in a full PPR scoring format, I probably end up rolling with... I wish Bijan Robinson was given 20 touches a game. I truly wish that was the case. I think the play is actually DeAndre Swift, Michael Pittman Jr., and Garrett Wilson this week in a full PPR. I think that's honestly the play. The only adjustment I would make there is potentially... No, I wouldn't make an adjustment there. I think that's the way I would go about it. I know it sucks because you're sitting a guy that maybe was your first overall pick, but it's tough to trust him at the moment. And that run stop defense for Minnesota kind of is no joke. Let's see here. We had a question from the Ocho. It says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR, Higgins, Godwin, Rice. Who am I playing? I'll play Godwin there. Higgins, Godwin, Rice. Yeah, I'll take Godwin. As for your follow-up question, Hill or Ferguson, in a half PPR scoring format, do I want to play Hill or do I want to play Ferguson? I'm probably just playing Ferguson. I think Taysom Hill has a chance to outscore him. Like I was mentioning on Thursday, Taysom Hill has scored a touchdown in 58% of the games he has played since 2022, or the start of 2022. And obviously, that is a ridiculously high rate, and that certainly can kind of keep him within the mix. Let me see here. Where's my Thursday rankings? What did I have Ferguson in comparison? He's like, what, 3 spots ahead of him? He's just, the only difference is he's a tier ahead of him. So for now, yeah, I'd probably just stick with Ferguson. I don't mind the play of Hill over him. I think the tight end position is purely like who scores a touchdown. That's the guy who's going to be relevant. But for right now, yeah, I'll take Ferguson for now. I think it's going to be a high scoring game regardless. We had a question that came in from Hector Gonzalez. Thank you very much, Hector. It says Madison or Singletary in my second league, Ford or Stevenson. Okay, so second league, Ford or Stevenson, I'll play Ford there. First league, Madison or Singletary. Madison against the... Okay, I'll take Madison, and then I'll take Ford. Thank you. Follow-up question. We had one from Bryce. Bryce says, Chuba Hubbard, Dotson with Samuel out. If it's a full PPR, I'd probably go with Dotson. If it's a half, I'll go with Chuba Hubbard. And or standard, I'll go with Chuba Hubbard. Eric sends in a question. Says, Myers versus the Giants, Flowers versus the Seahawks in a standard scoring format. In a standard scoring format, I'd play Flowers. I don't love it, but it's primarily because I don't know if I can trust Jacoby Myers as of yet. Aiden O'Connell being there, the last time we saw him out against the Los Angeles Chargers, was holding the ball a little bit too long. Then eventually late in the game, in order to remedy that, they had him dumping it off to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had a career-high 8 receptions in that game. I think it was week 4 against the Los Angeles Chargers. He had like 80 receiving yards, 8 catches, crazy number. If they're not going, I mean, look, the offense is going to be identical to what it has been. They're not going to change the offense much. The personnel is the same. The offensive play calling is different, but the play within the overall book is going to be the same. You can't just change your offense on a whim with 5 days notice. So at the moment, I think Myers will still have involvement, but for right now, I'll just lean towards playing Flowers there in a standard format. Thank you. Sean Bonds says, backup QB, Geno, Stafford, Daniel Jones, or Dobbs. For the rest of season, if I'm picking a backup quarterback, I think I'd rather have Josh Dobbs over the bunch. Honestly. Like, Josh Dobbs was really good with very little surrounding him. Now that he gets an improvement in terms of offensive line, receiving weapons around him, an improvement in terms of offensive play calling, a better defense to help get him the ball back on multiple scenarios, I think Josh Dobbs honestly is the best option of the group going forward. I know he hasn't played to his potential, like what he looked like earlier this season, but again, a lot of injuries within that offense and a lot of tough matchups. But I think going forward, the talent that surrounds him is definitely going to elevate his overall play. I see a couple people. Was I lagging earlier? Is that what was happening? Maybe I was. Either way. Let's see here. Catacomb Kid says, Moss or Henderson or Stevenson this week? I'll take Zach Moss out of the group. Catacomb, thank you. Mr. Dang says, Adams, Amari Cooper, Pittman, Marquise Brown, Evans. Which three? Adams, Evans, Pittman. Those are my 3 suggestions there, mister. Thank you. We had a question that came in from The Only Way is rugby. Let's see here. Let me find rugby's question. Rugby. Okay. Rugby, do me a solid. Type in the chat. I'll get to your question right now. Joe K in the chat said, Nico Collins, Godwin, Puka Nacua, pick 2. Under my assumption that Stafford does not play tomorrow morning, you would play the other 2 options. If in fact Stafford does play, you would play Godwin alongside of Puka Nacua. Herbert or Stroud in a 6-point per passing touchdown format? That's a really good question. Country, I don't know what to do for now. I would probably still leave Justin Herbert in my lineup, but I'll know by tomorrow morning for sure. I got to go do a little bit of digging in terms of what we're going to look like without an extra wide receiver out there. Quentin Johnson's going to have to step up, but even then, like, likelihood is Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, Michael Carter, they lock down this offense for majority of the day, which is a little bit concerning. So, well, yeah, I'll have an answer for sure by tomorrow for the quarterback scenario there. Let's see here. Where's rugby? Anything from rugby as of late? No. Okay, no problem. Let's see here. Darrell Henderson or DJ Moore says best. Okay, best. Let's see here. Assuming, let's say, for example, you're playing in a half PPR, considering you didn't mention your format. Under the assumption that it's a half PPR, I would probably end up playing. If it's a half PPR and there's no Matthew Stafford, I will probably take DJ Moore there. Marcus Crosby says McBride or JSN in the flex. I'll probably go with McBride there. Jay McLaughlin says, hi, Andrew. Flex 2 in a standard. We have Hunt, Chuba, Brian Robinson, Zay Flowers. In a standard scoring format, I would probably end up playing Kareem Hunt alongside of Chuba Hubbard. Thank you. Real Cole Grant, thank you, Cole Grant, says 12-team PPR, Walker and Sutton, or AJ and Brian Robinson Jr. I would rather have AJ and Brian, assuming that's AJ Brown, correct? AJ Brown? It's not Aaron Jones as an AJ, right? If it's, actually clarify that really quickly. Because even, let's say, for example, even if it's Aaron Jones, I'd probably still take it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'd probably still take it. Dan Young in the chat said, hey, Andrew, in a 10-team full PPR, I traded Will Levis and Logan Thomas for Hawkinson. Yeah, that's a fantastic trade. Fantastic. I already had Hurts and Stroud as my quarterbacks. Did I fleece them? Yeah, that's a fleece. Absolutely. Again, like I was mentioning earlier, like this offense for the Minnesota Vikings, the reason why they traded for Hawkinson last year, I think I mentioned this on Thursday's video, or did I mention it earlier? Either way, I think it was Thursday's video. The reason why they traded for Hawkinson last season is because they knew that they wanted to get utilization out of a tight end. Irv Smith last season wasn't cutting it because he was consistently getting injured. As soon as TJ Hawkinson arrived, consistent opportunity. The last 13 games he has played, including the NFL playoffs last year, He has had 8+ targets in 12 of those 13 games. That's a ridiculous number. So we know that even with Jaren Hall, even with Joshua Dobbs going forward, there's a huge part of this play calling, huge part of this offense that is, hey, we got to get the ball to biggie number 87. And as long as we continue to do that, we'll be fine. And they'll continue to do that. I'm sure they will. All right, let's see here. Did Rugby end up typing anything? Rugby? There you go. Rugby says, do I start Hawkinson and Kincaid or pick up Brandon Cooks off the waivers? Traded my depth for Jefferson to pair with Jamar, Waddle, Brees, Kamara, and Mahomes. If I was you, I would keep what you have. I would not pick up Brandon Cooks. I would start Hawkinson, and I would play Kincaid this week as well. Thank you. Cole Grant says it's Aaron Jones. Yeah, okay, so if it's Aaron Jones in this scenario, let me look at Washington Commanders' schedule. Because if you're bringing in Brian Robinson Jr., it's purely going to be predicated on what he's going to do for you late in the season. So this week he has New England, which is fine, right? He has Seattle next week. I don't love it, but that's also fine. Actually, yeah, that could be fine. Then he has the Giants, which is a good matchup. Dallas is okay. The Dolphins is okay. And then, okay, so the fantasy playoffs consist of taking on the Rams, Jets, and 49ers. Would I rather have that or Cortland Sutton? Let me see here. Broncos schedule. Let me see what Cortland Sutton's going to be dealing with late in the season. His last 3 games are Lions, Patriots, and Chargers. And in the next couple weeks, what do we have here? We have Bills, we have Vikings, we have Browns, we have Houston. I don't love these matchups either. Yeah, I don't mind making that trade. I don't mind it. I think it's an even trade across the board. I think it's a matter of preference, and I'll prefer the Aaron Jones side of that deal. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Joe Pearson in the chat says, love the content. Half PPR Rice, Darrell Henderson, or Puka Nacua. Under the assumption that we have Puka. Okay, well, here's the thing. You won't know if Matthew Stafford is playing until after that game between the Kansas City Chiefs tomorrow morning and Dolphins, because that starts at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow morning. So you won't know until after that game is pretty much concluded whether or not Matthew Stafford is available. So you could end up risking it. You wait. If Matthew Stafford's available, you play Puka. Otherwise, you play Darrell Henderson in his stead. I think that's probably the best plan of action, just to kind of have the chance of playing Puka potentially. Or you could still play Puka and maybe he has himself a great game. It's just up to Brett Rippon and his capabilities as a quarterback in the climate and the conditions of that game. Hey Andrew, Keenan Allen or Cooper Kupp in a full PPR? I think I'm pretty sure I had Cooper Kupp ranked higher earlier this week. I'm going to still stick with that. I'm not changing that. Trevor Lawrence, Fields, or Murray, keep 2 rest of the season. If I'm keeping 2 rest of the season, it's Lawrence and it's Fields. Is Ingram worth a start over either Edwards, Mixon, or Swift? Are we talking about Keontae Ingram there, James Biggs? If you're mentioning Keontae Ingram, no, he is not worth starting over any of those 3 options. Keontae Ingram had a chance earlier this season of being a starting running back of the Arizona Cardinals. In that overall opportunity, he failed miserably. We had a question that came in from Nathan Kane. He said, Cam Akers or Justice Hill? Yeah, I'll take Justice Hill there this week. Cam Akers could score a touchdown. I don't know how likely that really is. Hubbard, Demario Douglas, Singletary, Osborne, standard PPR league. If I'm playing one in a full PPR, it's either Douglas or Hubbard. I think Douglas has a safer floor. I think Hubbard has the higher upside. So I probably just I just mentioned that, and you kind of have to close the gap depending on what your team looks like for now. Hey Andrew, I just traded McBride for Higgins. I have Andrews as my starter. Yeah, that's a good move. I don't mind that at all. Like, because you were never going to play McBride in the first place. Bringing in extra wide receiver depth, especially buying low on the idea of Higgins, that's fine by me. I don't mind that at all. Chuba Hubbard or Ford in the flex. Corey, I'm going to lean towards Ford for now. Let's see here. Downs or Hubbard in a full PPR. I think I'd play Josh Downs there if he's healthy. Shrooms. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Donald Smith says PPR. DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Chuba Hubbard. It's between Higgins and Hubbard. I'd probably play Hubbard there, though. Puka Nacua or Tank Dell. Stroud's my quarterback. Depends. If Stafford's available, you play Puka, and you kind of have to play Puka. If he's not, obviously you'll play Tank Dell instead. Chris Bradley in the chat was saying, "Hey Andrew, thanks for all the that you do. Lockett or Addison in the flex PPR. I'll take Addison there this week. Appreciate it." Okay, guys. Let's see here. Sirius sends in, or just types in the chat, was saying Devin Singletary, Brian Robinson, or Darrell Henderson, pick 2. Yeah, I'll bench Devin Singletary. Give me Henderson and give me Brian Robinson there. Andrew P says, with Geno Smith, will Geno Smith score 15 points this week? I hope so. I mean, I truly hope so. As to whether he does it, time will obviously tell. All right, guys, really quickly, let me go ahead. I'm gonna remind you guys, if you haven't yet already, there's about 330 of you in here. We had about 150 likes. If you guys could do me a solid, click the like button down below. It'd be greatly appreciated in terms of supporting the channel. If we can get closer to 200 likes, that would be fantastic. Terry Fiji in the chat was saying, White, Cook, Godwin, Stevenson down for the flex. If I'm only playing one of the potential 5 options there, it's either Josh Downs or Chris Godwin. For right now, I'd probably lean towards playing Chris Godwin, considering Josh Downs is questionable. Armando says, I have Justice Hill starting as my RB2, and I have Roshan Johnson on my bench and hurting at RBs. Should I drop Hill for Zach Charbonnet and play Roshan Johnson? Akers, Zeke, Ingram are also on the waiver. If you're looking for the best potential option as the RB2 this week out of the ones that you've mentioned, I think Keontae Ingram is your best available option. But as for rest of season value, like, hey, who do I want for the remainder of the season? Because next week, James Conner is going to return and take the job away from Keontae Ingram. I think that it is a pretty solid idea to pick up Charbonnet and have him paired up with Roshan Johnson there, Armando. And play Roshan this week as your RB2. Thank you. Rowett says, hey, Andrew, should I start Mondre or Downs for Mixon or Aaron Jones? No. Keep Mixon and Jones. You're good to go. Thank you. Is Hollywood Brown an okay start? Yeah, I think it depends on what you're comparing it to, though, right? It's all about perspective, right? So in terms of the context, if it's like, do I play Marquise Hollywood Brown or Rashid Shaheed, right? I would venture to say they both have, high potential for upside, but they're both just as kind of like sketchy as one another. Who's going to have a higher target volume? It would probably be someone like Marquise Hollywood Brown, and I'd lean in his direction. But if we're going to talk about like a Chris Godwin or a Marquise Hollywood Brown, someone who's going to have just as many targets, just as much upside, and just has better overall quarterback play in a better matchup, I would probably lean there with Godwin, So it's all a matter of the context as to who we're comparing him to. Leo in the chat says, Pollard, Jones, Ford rest of season at the flex. If I'm playing one, it's Pollard. I mean, I honestly do believe Pollard eventually gets back on track. If Pollard is going to go and score literally 0 touchdowns for the remainder of the season, not only will I be surprised, it will be a record. For the volume of rushing touchdowns the Dallas Cowboys had last year, if I'm not mistaken, let me see here. I think they may have led the team or led the league in terms of running back rushing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a ridiculous stat, but let's see here. Let's go find the stat, shall we? Yeah, in terms of running back rushing touchdowns, they were behind the Lions, but they were in the top 3. I think they were number 2 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, pretty ridiculous. If they go from scoring I don't know, I think it was 21 rushing touchdowns as running backs as a duo between Zeke and Pollard to going and only scoring 2 this season, like eventually the dam is going to break and the water is going to flow in and the touchdowns will eventually join his overall score line. All right, HG Keep Grinding says Waller's on the IR, Mayer or Jonnu Smith. Going into this, okay, considering we're looking for a rest of season option, I'd probably pick up Michael Mayer. I don't know if Jonnu Smith will be the rest of season kind of play. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from, okay, so we took care of HG Grinding. Keep grinding. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Malachi sends in a question. Where's Malachi's question, though? Malachi. Here we go. Malachi says, hi. I need 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. I have A.J. Brown, Adam Thielen, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Mostert, Pittman. Okay. Let me go ahead and let me copy this entire question, move it into a notepad so that I can organize it myself. What am I doing? What have I done? All right, there we go. Notepad. All right, so let's delete this. So we need 2 wide receivers. Okay, so those are wide receivers. Those are running backs. Okay, so based on my current rankings, right? A.J. Brown and Adam Thielen are your 2 wide receivers. You know that already. I'm sure you have that set. As for your 2 running backs that you're playing, I have Breece Hall and I have Tony Pollard ranked higher than Mostert. So if it's a matter of picking a flex between Michael Pittman Jr. and Raheem Mostert, because I don't want to play Christian Watson, I don't want to play Kareem Hunt and or Metcalf comparatively, it's a matter of what your scoring format is. If you play in a full PPR, I'll play Michael Pittman Jr. there. If you play in a half PPR, I'll take Raheem Mostert there this week. Thank you. Thank you, Malachi. Very unique name. Awesome name. Let's see here. We had a question in the chat. Let's see here. Young Lord says, "Hey Andrew, who do I start at wide receiver?" What do you got, my man? Let's see. Did you type earlier? Young Lord. That's your first question, brother. Who do you have? All right. Wayne says maybe Pollard just can't handle the full workload. It's not a matter of Pollard not being able to handle the full workload. It's a matter of the offensive line being abysmal down in the red zone. If you guys have watched those games, the Dallas Cowboys get into the red zone and the offensive line, despite how much talent and how much money is being spent on it, is awful. Also, play calling makes a huge difference, but it's not a matter of I'm not talking about efficiency. His efficiency has been terrible this year in terms of Tony Pollard's rushing yards per carry after contact, all these kind of metrics. They're extremely down. Don't get me wrong. He's inefficient. But in terms of getting the ball on the 1 yard line, if I go back to last season, let me look at these stats real quick, just so we have a reference, just so you understand what I mean when I say what I, specifically say. So last season, amongst all players in the National Football League, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, doesn't matter, all the positions, in terms of rushing attempts inside the 5 yard line, Jamal Williams was number 1, Jalen Hurts was number 2, Zeke Elliott was number 3. He had 16 rushing attempts inside the 5 yard line for 9 rushing touchdowns. Okay, that was last season. 16 attempts, 9 rushing touchdowns. Already thus far this season, Tony Pollard has 6 of those rushing attempts for only 2 rushing touchdowns. So if the remainder of the season he can get somewhere close to, 16 rushing attempts, 9 rushing touchdowns, that conversion rate is ridiculously high. What is that, 9 divided by 16? That's a 56% rate. Right now, with 6 rushing attempts, 2 touchdowns, he has a 33% rate of conversion. They get into the red zone, and then they stall out. They can't even get to the 5 yard line. That's what I'm saying. Their offensive line is abysmal in the overall field of play. So as soon as they get there, they can get better play calling. Maybe he can get back to scoring touchdowns. That's the expectation, because he's far too talented, and this offense is far too good for them to keep messing up. Eric Tran says, "Hey Andrew, start Stevenson or Rice non-PPR?" I'd probably play Stevenson there in a non-PPR, to be honest. Christopher in the chat was saying, trade Olave/Thielen for Devontae Adams. It depends how much depth you have. If you don't have enough depth, I wouldn't do it. If you're playing in an 8-team league, I can make sense of it. But if you're playing in a 12, 14-team league, it's a terrible move. I think you'd rather have the depth going forward. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Rel7. It says full PPR, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. Rice, Puka Nacua, and Ford. Okay. So considering your scenario, you can either do one of 2 things. Risk it with Puka and play him regardless of whether or not Matthew Stafford goes, or you play Rice in the early window, you play him against Miami, and then after that, prior to the kickoff at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow morning, once we figure out whether or not Matthew Stafford is active, then you can decide between Puka Nacua and Ford. And if Stafford is active, you'd play Puka there. Otherwise, you pivot to Ford. So that's probably the suggestion. Play Rice, and then let's figure out what we do with the other 2 players. Thank you. Jorge Perez sends in a super chat. Thank you, Jorge. I greatly appreciate that. Let me see where your question went, or if you've typed it. Jorge Perez says, full PPR, Andrew. Need RB. ETN is on bye. Starting Mixon. Have Jeff Wilson Jr. and Foreman on. Okay. or hit the waivers for Roshan, Freeman, Singletary, Ingram. Okay. Dylan, also McPherson or Groupie rest of season. Okay, so here's my question. Let me check something really quickly. I need to go check. Okay, so this is what I would suggest for now. As for what you have available on roster, I don't feel great about playing Foreman. I don't feel great about playing Jeff Wilson Jr. I'd probably feel better about playing Singletary over the bunch. So that's the guy that I would lean towards. Yeah, that's probably the guy that I'd lean towards there. All right. Zolbu sends in a question. Says, I need one tight end, one flex, full PPR. Taysom Everett, Alexander Madison, Rashid Shaheed. Whew, that's not easy, man. Let me look at Rashid Shaheed's snap counts as of late. Let me see here. Where is New Orleans Saints? Rashid Shaheed. He played 27% of the snaps last week. That's what I was worried about because I remember seeing it early in the week. He played 18 total snaps of the offense playing 60. I think it was 65. Let me check here. 18 divided by 65. No, that's way too high. 18 of 70. Dude, how many did he play? Wait. 18 snap. Wow, so they had way more than that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he barely played in the game. So, of the overall potential here, let's think about this. Oh no, yeah, it is like 18 divided by 70, right? Yeah, so he played 18 of like the 68 overall snaps, which is not great, right? So he was off the field more often than he was on the field because they were running a lot of other personnel sets, and also Lynn Bowden played more snaps than him last week, which is kind of sketchy. That being said, let's see here. Rashid Shaheed, kind of target opportunity we're looking at. Yeah. He if you think he's going to score a touchdown, he's Gabriel Davis. That's what he is. So for now, I'll play Alexander Madison there. And then if I'm picking between Everett and Hill, in a full PPR, I kind of want to play Everett. But considering there's going to be Donald Parham, I'd probably just play Taysom Hill there. Mikey S says Fields / Kyler rest of season. I'd rather have Fields. If and when Fields is healthy, his rushing upside and the potential of which he was playing at prior to his injury, I'll take that. Trade one for a wide receiver PPR. It purely depends. You got to find a team that has no quarterbacks and then tell me what they have on roster. Because if I say, hey, go trade Kyler Murray for T. Higgins, I don't know if someone's going to accept that. You know what I mean? Like if I say go trade Kyler Murray for Nico Collins, I don't know if someone would be up for that. But you can try it. I mean, like technically. But again, the value of a player is purely based on what the other team that you're trading with values him at. It's not as to what the league values him at because you're only talking to one specific person unless you're going to go ahead and field offers from everyone. Daniel Barnes sends in another question. Daniel Barnes says, okay, Daniel, you got to type in the chat because it wasn't attached. Thank you. We had a question from Canelo. Says, dealt Mixon / Marquise Hollywood Brown for Waddle. So I lost running back depth. Okay, understood. I have Bijan, Alvin Kamara, White, Charbonnet, Khalil Herbert. Drop Khalil Herbert for Roshan Johnson, Leonard Fournette, Bigsby, or upside. Dealt Mixon, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Waddle. So I lost. Yeah, you lost a lot of running back depth there, like a lot. But you're fine. You have 3 starting running backs. You have Bijan, you have AK, and you have White for the remainder of the season. Am I dropping Khalil Herbert for any of those options? No, I would keep Khalil Herbert, Canelo. Thank you. Frankie. Was there a message that you had attached? Frankie, where you at, man? Frankie says, start 3. Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Scary Terry, Aaron Jones. I would suggest playing Devonta Smith, Scary Terry, and Aaron Jones there. Thank you. Appreciate it, Frankie. Greatly appreciate it. All right, so who are we missing? Daniel Barnes. Control F. Daniel Barnes. Nothing yet. Okay, we wait for Daniel. Jorge Perez sent in another question. Do you have... Okay, there's Jorge. Hey, Andrew. Full PPR, McPherson or Groupie rest of season? Probably Blake Groupie. That offense just kicks more field goals, to be honest. Quick question, Hubbard or... What does that say? Henderson? Yeah, I'll take Hubbard this week. DC King. I'll take Hubbard. Let's see here. Tano Martin says, hey, Andrew, full PPR, Mixon, Pacheco, Ford, Hunt. Mixon and Pacheco are the guys. If you're only starting one of the two, though, I'd play probably Mixon for now. But I like them both. Christian Watson to start over JSN. Probably not. I think I'd probably play JSN there. Christian Watson's impossible to start right now. Like, legitimately impossible. Hey, Andrew, I wasn't asking which to start. Should I trade Mondre and Downs for Mixon and Aaron Jones? Wait, that was the actual question? Trading Mondre and Downs for Mixon and Aaron Jones? At this point, yeah, I'll take Mixon there. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's fine by me. Sorry for the miscommunication. I thought it was a actual like one. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I'll take that. Let's see here. Okay, cool. Let me check something. All right, cool. So we got about 30 more minutes left in the live stream. I do appreciate y'all coming out. Let's see, where's the likes at? We're at 203. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that, guys. Much appreciated. Couple reminders. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back at 6:30 a.m. I'm not leaving yet. I'll be here for the next 30 minutes, but we're going to transition into putting together a couple pick'em slips via Underdog Fantasy. If you guys have any suggestions, ask for plays. Let's go ahead and get those sent in. I'm also going to be able to put together a play in terms of the NBA today because I think there's 0.5 total points for LeBron James. Anybody can take advantage of that, so be sure to check that out. Again, there's a link down in the description. Just travel on over, use code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10 once. You'll get my rankings every single Sunday for the remainder of the season. You'll also be able to take advantage of, participating in the draft via Underdog Fantasy, whether it's like a resurrection league or a playoff best ball league or, the weekly battle royales, all that kind of jazz, the kerfuffles for the Germany games or London games, the pick'em slips, all that kind of jazz. Greatly appreciate it. Let me go ahead and let's transition the screen on over really quickly to Underdog. Okay, cool. We're here. So, in terms of the potential of this week, right? There's a lot of potential, but for right now, again, this can be put into a play, 0.5 total points. Let's see here. If I go to the home, yeah, this is the main play. If I go to NFL, again, Jonathan Taylor, 85 total yards. You could go ahead and put that in. I think 85 total yards is very accomplishable. I'm sketched out about it because Zach Moss, of course, right? Either way, I'm going to put a play together for today. Let's see. I can't put two Lakers in within a singular play. Who else plays tonight in terms of the NBA? Does Tyrese Maxey play? Because last week when we were doing this, Tyrese Maxey, I picked higher on points, rebounds, and assists, and the guy was an absolute machine. So I was like, all right, could we get another Tyrese Maxey play in the absence of, the trade that took place sending James Harden and the Clippers? Let me see. Did Daniel Barnes ever send in a message? Let's see. Daniel Barnes says pick one in a PPR, Hubbard or Zach Moss. I'd probably play Zach Moss there, to be honest. Prime 8 play sent in the question said, should I trade Hawkinson and Devonta Smith for Breece Hall? I have Laporta, Ferguson, and McBride. Can you trade away Laporta? Well, technically, considering what you have, you can make that trade. Yes. Technically, you can make the trade. You play Laporta the rest of the season. You're making a lateral move. That's fine. I think it's okay based on the depth you have. I don't know why you have so many stud tight ends, but yeah, you can technically make the trade. All right, let's see here. Should I start Olave or Devontae Adams tomorrow? Carlos, I would suggest playing Devontae Adams. All right, let me see here. What kind of plays can I make? Like 6.5 rebounds for Zion was something I was looking at earlier in terms of a play. I know this season he's been able to get 7 or more twice and then 5 or he got 5 rebounds in 2 different games and then got 7 in one and 10 in the other. So it's like a 50-50 at this point, but who do they play against? Atlanta. Like I'm fairly certain 7 rebounds should be decent. Let's see here. I think I'm going to do something like this. I think I'm going to take, where's Tyrese Halliburton? Does he have a fantasy point one? 45.1. Let's see. Last time out, 13 assists in both those games, over 18 points in both those games. So if he's going to get himself, I mean, that's not a bad play. Is there points and rebounds or points and assists? Points and assists, 32. I think I'm going to take this. All right, this is what I'm going to roll with. Actually, maybe I just keep LeBron. Okay, unless someone's got a suggestion for the NBA, I'm not going to act like I know everything. Let's just wait for a second here. I'm going to wait. Do I start Downs or Flowers in a PPR? If Downs plays tomorrow, I'll take him, Kyle. Max says Meyer, Stevenson, Rice, or Downs. Out of that bunch, in a half PPR, it's probably Stevenson. T93 says one wide receiver, one running back, one flex, full PPR. I have Mike Evans, I have Cooper Kupp, I have Rashad White, I have Ford and DJ Moore. T93, if I'm playing one wide receiver there, I'd like to play Cooper Kupp. If I'm playing one flex there, it would be Mike Evans. If I'm playing a running back out of that group, it's between White and Ford. And between those two, in a full PPR scoring format, I'll take White. In a half PPR, I'll take Ford. Thank you. Carlos says, okay, so we took your Carlos question. Ishan says, should I trade Ramondre, Thielen, and Kyler for Bijan Robinson, Debo, and Christian Kirk? Hold up. Ramondre, Thielen, Kyler for Bijan, Debo, and Christian Kirk. Yes. You should make that trade. Abso-freaking-lutely. My RBs, yeah, I'll make that trade. Yes, please. Let's do it. Bring it. If you're bringing in Bijan, Debo, and Kirk, yes. Prescott or Herbert, standard. Let's play Prescott tomorrow for sure. Yeah, let's play Prescott. Should I start Chris Olave? Okay, we already answered that question, Carlos. No problem. JT says, play Dallas's defense this week or pick up New England or Las Vegas. That's a good question. I want to play Dallas defense. If you have to drop Dallas's defense, I wouldn't suggest doing so. The reason why so under the assumption that you can get away with picking up a defense, such as New England and or Las Vegas, I'm okay with that. Perfectly fine with that. But if you're going to be in a situation where you have to drop Dallas's defense, I wouldn't suggest it, because after the Eagles games this week, they have the Giants and then they have the Carolina Panthers back-to-back weeks. I legitimately think that the defense for the Dallas Cowboys can score 15 to 20 points each of those 2 weeks. And then they take on the Washington Commanders, which is going to be a tough game. That's fine. Then they take on Seattle. I think their defense will play well against them in that position. And then going into the NFL playoffs, you'll probably have to drop the Dallas defense. Maybe they'll be good, but they'll have to take on Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit in the fantasy football playoffs. So I would suggest being in a scenario in which you want to keep them for weeks 10 and 11, and then after which, then you can start playing around with it. But for now, for this week, if you can pick up a defense and play them and it's not going to affect you dropping Dallas, then you're fine. Let's go ahead and do that. As for which defense we'll go after, let me see who I have ranked higher as of Thursday. As of Thursday, I had New England higher in terms of my rankings. Thank you. Alrighty. As for your follow-up question there, JT, you had Murray, Deshaun Watson, or CJ Stroud rest of the season. Out of those 3 options, CJ Stroud's last, Deshaun Watson's first, assuming he's fully healthy, and Murray's second. So it'll be Watson, Murray, Stroud. If Deshaun Watson is still dealing with a shoulder problem, I'd say Murray 1, Deshaun 2, CJ Stroud 3. I have Lamar. I need a backup. Oh, okay. So if we're looking for a backup for week 13, okay. So that's a little bit different. So let me go look at the week 13 schedule. Week 13. Let's see here. Arizona takes on Steelers. Okay. Cleveland takes on the Rams. Okay. And Stroud. Where's Stroud? Dude, there is 6 teams on bye in week 13. What a disaster. The Ravens, Bills, Bears, Raiders, Vikings, and Giants are all on bye week. Yikes. Okay. Anyway, who is Houston playing this week? Houston plays against Denver in Houston. If I'm going to suggest to keep one to play for then, I would say, let me check something really quickly. I would probably suggest it being, I'd suggest it being Deshaun Watson. Thank you. Moving Palmer to the IR so I don't have to drop Dallas' defense. Got it. So yeah, just pick up New England at that point. Smooth Criminal says, take Porzingis, spicy double-double. Say less, brother. Do I want to use it with, I mean, all right, let me see here. What kind of stats we've been looking at as of late? Let me see. Let me scroll a little bit. Where is he going to get a double-double from? My brother, he doesn't get rebounds. I'm getting sold. What are you talking about? I mean, he can score. He's a bucket, but goodness, he ain't going to get I mean, what do you know that I don't know? That's what I'm curious about. Otherwise, Porzingis just seems like I'm selling the bag here. I'd rather go back to playing Tyrese Halliburton, points, rebounds, and assists, and just sending it that way, or going off full fantasy points in that scenario. How's Trae Young playing this year? Is he any good? 23, 24, 20. Playing against New Orleans Pelicans. Depends on if Thing is playing tonight. The guy that was injured. What's his name? All right, we had a question that was sent in from Rough Times. Rough Times says, love the content for years. See question below. Great. Let's see here. Rough Times says, all right, so Fields, Watson. Okay, so I have Fields. Please shut. Okay, Watson, Minshew. Drop 1. Charbonnet. Have K9. Okay, Nico Collins, Moss, 0.25. Really? 0.25 per rush? Oh my God, that is a ridiculous league. Also, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex, 1 tight end, full PPR, Higgins, Evans. Okay, so let's say okay. Let me figure this out. Fields. So let me see. Okay, let me write this all down just so I have it all for context. Okay, so this is my suggestion, Rough Times. You drop Minshew, you pick up Fields, you play Watson. So you would have Watson and Fields rest of season. That would be my suggestion. Follow up to that, drop 1 from Charbonnet, Nico Collins, Moss. If you have to drop 1 of the 3, I would you probably just drop Charbonnet. I'd rather have Nico Collins and Moss rest of the season. Follow up to that to your 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and 1 flex question. Higgins, Evans, Aaron Jones, Flowers. I think that's what it says. Say Flowers, yeah. Pitts, Taysom. Out of those players, in a full PPR, I'll take Kyle Pitts. I'll take Mike Evans. I'll take Aaron Jones. Thank you. Appreciate it, Rough Times. We also had a question from Dorsey 5001 says TJ Hawkinson or Trey McBride. I'll still play TJ Hawkinson there this week. Thank you. Cap in the chat was saying Chuba Hubbard or Rashad White. Chuba Hubbard in a half PPR, Rashad White in a full PPR. Cash Kid Cardi says Deshaun Watson or CJ Stroud, 6 point per passing touchdown league. Really can't trust Herbert this week. Yeah, I don't blame you. If we're playing one of the two, I think it's just safe to play CJ Stroud this week. I don't know if I want to take the risk just yet in comparison, but in some scenarios we could. But for right now, I just suggest playing the safer of the two. Is Waller a drop in a 10-team league? Yeah, I would think he is, yes. Let's see here. Young Lord says, hey, Andrew, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex, full PPR. Addison, Cooper, Collins, Rashad White, Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker would be the flex, and Addison would be the wide receiver in that scenario. Thank you. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to put LeBron with an NFL play. I don't want to do anything crazy. Let's just put him with an NFL play. Let me see what I can find here. What do we have cooking, shall we? So in terms of, I'm almost convinced that this is going to work. I'm almost convinced. I think it's a sketchy play, but I'm almost convinced. He's thrown an interception for each of the last 3 weeks. The guy just doesn't know when to stop. He's throwing it into double coverage. Passes are getting tipped. Some of them are unlucky. I get it, but still. I think it's actually a play. Damn, they don't have anything ready for the Rams because they just don't know. Don't blame them. Don't blame them at all. Okay. Forget this. Get me out of here. Give me this. Okay, moving on. Let me scroll down. I'm going window shopping pretty much, guys. I'm strolling down the list and seeing what's on sale. Where's Demario Douglas at? 4.5 receptions, 6.5 targets. I think 6.5 targets is a walk in the park. Okay, I like that. Here we go. Here we go. We're cooking here. Scroll down a little bit. Let me get back to answering some of these chat questions really quickly. Roshan Johnson or Keontae Ingram? I'll take Ingram there. I'm fine with that. Okay, well, look, here's the thing. You got to remember, if Damian Williams is active, we're in trouble. We'll have to wait till tomorrow morning to know. But if Damian Williams is active, get ready to switch back to Roshan Johnson there. Pollard or Barkley rest of the season? I'll take Barkley. I'm fine with that. Devontae, I mean, his offensive line is finally getting healthy. Like, literally finally getting healthy. And Daniel Jones is finally back. So they'll be a little bit better going forward. Do you like Terry McLaurin or Rashee Rice in a non-PPR? I like Terry McLaurin. Would you start Chris Olave or Devontae Adams? Carlos, I answered that like 20 minutes ago, brother. Play Devontae Adams. Eric says Brandon Ingram or De'Aaron Fox are the plays. Is that right? Okay, say less. Let's see here. What do we have from De'Aaron Fox? Okay, so Fox doesn't have anything. Ingram? Brandon Ingram? Brandon Ingram against the Atlanta Hawks, huh? Okay. Let me do a little bit of research here, shall we? Let me look at his game logs last year against Atlanta. Let me see what we're looking at. Why the heck is my keyboard not working? Here we go. Let's filter this. Against Atlanta last season, he had a game of 30 points, and he had a game of 16 points. What was wrong with his 16-point game? He was 7 for 23 shooting. I mean, he doesn't really have those kind of games. This is the primary scorer of this offense. Speaking of that, he's literally coming off a game in which he went 7 for 18 scoring. Okay, interesting. What are we thinking on Brandon Ingram, though? Are we thinking points? What are we thinking? That's the question. How do we feel about Trey McBride following the big week with Kyler, who likes his tight ends? Yeah, rest of season, Trey McBride's a top 10 tight end. That's a given. 100% he's a top 10 tight end rest of season. It's not even just that like Kyler likes to throw to his tight ends, because like he's already demonstrated that with I almost said Kyle Pitts, with Zach Ertz in the last couple of years. But it's that the offensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals loves to utilize the tight end position as much as he does. So that's fine. Let's see here. Check Dorian Finney-Smith over under on rebounds and threes. He's okay. All right, let me do something real quick. I'm gonna leave LeBron there. I'm just gonna make this play really quickly for the NFL games. I like that one. Then I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna take LeBron. All right, Dorian Finney. Okay, here we go. Finney-Smith. You said what? Rebounds and 3-point shots made? Dude, really? This guy does he take that many 3-point attempts? That the number's at 6.0? Yo, I mean, these guys, they're just letting him shoot everything, huh? Let me see here. Control F, Dorian. All right, so Buffet says check Dorian Finney-Smith over under on rebounds and threes. He's going to go off, and Ben Simmons is out. All right, let me see here. What does his rebounds look like the last couple nights? 3, 3, and 7. I mean, if this guy's taking this many 3-pointers, what's his well, okay, how many points is he scoring as of late? 21, 15, and wait, so why is he at 11.5 points? Wait a minute. What don't I know here? This is the problem. I don't watch enough basketball. I don't watch all the games, but I'll keep up. I understand. I know who the players are to an extent, but like, what's going on here? Let me see here. Yeah, the last 5 games, 10, 12, 19, 15, and 21. Great. So we'll take the 11.5. Fantastic. Love to see it. Thank you very much, Buffet. That's fantastic. Let's see here. Braden Ross says Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, or DJ Moore as my wide receiver 2. I would suggest playing Devonta Smith there. JT says James Cook or Jerome Ford. I'll take Jerome Ford there. Cash Kid Cardi says standard league Aaron Jones or Bijan. In a standard scoring format, I'd probably lean towards Bijan there. Max says Myers, Stevenson, Rice, or Downs. In a half PPR, I'm probably going to go with Stevenson there, but if you want to risk it, you could play Downs. And I don't know if it's risking it technically either. I think Downs is just a matter of is he healthy. Corey Mickey says, how screwed am I without Christian McCaffrey this week? I don't know. You got to tell me. I mean, just think about it. Take your team's projections, assume they're all going to play average, and then not have an additional 25 points on top of it. That's kind of the unfortunate scenario here. We had a couple super chats that were sent in. Let me go ahead and address those really quickly. Do appreciate you guys sending those in. Super chat sent in from Terry R. Terry, thank you very much. Says, drop Miles for Douglas, Foreman, or Dotson. Yeah, I don't mind dropping Miles for Douglas. As for your follow-up, Seattle defense, New York Giants defense, or Las Vegas, I will probably, of the three, suggest going with Las Vegas this week. Thank you. Rockout says, 2 flex, Dotson, Ferguson, JSN. As for those 3 options, I'll take Dotson and Ferguson. Thank you. Precision Building says, pick one, Henderson or Addison. I'll take Addison there. Thank you. Arda sends in a question. Thank you very much, Arda. Arda says, would you drop any of the players mentioned above for Myers, McLaurin, or Singletary? Any of the players mentioned above. Arda, where's your Arda? Hey, boss, Olave. Okay, so which players above are we referring to? Also, trying to trade like Olave plus Smith for a wide receiver 1 or an RB1, have Hill, Keenan Allen, Tony Pollard, and Swift. So if you're going to trade Olave and Devonta Smith for, let's say, for example, let's go after a running back, it's just a matter of which team needs wide receivers. Like, is there a team in your league that is desperate for a wide receiver? If they are, and they also just so happen to have, an Austin Eckler on their team, if they just so happen to have, I mean, you have to be in a really thin league in the first place to be able to trade 2 of those guys for a singular RB. Because if I'm trading away Olave and Smith rest of season, at very base minimum, let me see here. Let's see. At a very base minimum, like if I can get Kamara back, great. I don't think you will. I want ETN. I want Kamara. I want Eckler. I want Breece Hall, but I don't know if they'll give it to you. I guess you could go after Josh Jacobs. You could go after a Derrick Henry. You already have ETN. I mean, you already have Pollard and Swift. So it would have to be one of these. Yeah, it would have to be like a Henry, Barkley, Hall, Kamara, Jacobs, ETN. It would have to be one of those kind of guys. Otherwise, you just don't make the move. The ones from the super chat question. Okay, so from the one earlier. Got it. So the question of Olave, Addison, or Hunt. Got it. So Arda's question of Olave, Addison, Hunt, Smith. Would you drop any players mentioned for Myers, McLaurin? Okay, so Olave, Addison, Hunt, Smith. No, I wouldn't. I would keep them as is. I wouldn't make any of the drops. But if you can trade 2 for 1 and you can go get one of those running backs I mentioned, and then you can go and pick up one of those other, potential options, like potentially picking up Singletary for the remainder of the season. Sorry, not Singletary. McLaurin for the remainder of the season. I think that would work. Thank you. Rockout says Cowboys or Jets defense. I'll take the Jets defense this week. But if you have to drop the Cowboys defense, maybe I wouldn't suggest doing so because I want to play them in week 10 and 11. Mo Money says, do I trade Puka? I'm going to actually put this play in real quick. Let's see here. Is it max $10? It is max $10. I'm going to play this. Let's do it. Dorian Finney-Smith. Arda says the players mentioned. Okay, cool. We took care of that. Mo Money says, do I trade Puka and Taylor or Mostert for Diggs? Yeah, I don't mind trading Mostert and Puka for Diggs. Not Taylor, though. Thank you. Tomasi 676 says half PPR, start 2 wide receivers, Watson, Dell, Rice, Douglas. I'll take Rice and Douglas there. Thank you, Tomasi. Appreciate it. Again, guys, do not forget LeBron James. Wait, did I already? How many times can I make this into a play? Wait, can I do it again? Or did it not go through? Hold up. Wait a minute. Live. Pick 'em. It did go through. Wait, can I do it again? Wait a minute. Have I glitched the system? No, it just updated. Okay, don't forget, 0.5 total points from LeBron. Take advantage of that today via Underdog Fantasy. Greatly appreciate you guys doing that. Let me go ahead and transition back. Again, if you sign up using code Andrew today, prior to midnight, and make that first time deposit minimum of $10, you will have my rankings email in your inbox around 3 a.m. this tomorrow morning, prior to the game between the Chiefs and Dolphins in Germany. You'll have the rankings that are all encompassing half PPR, full PPR, all that kind of jazz. So be able to take advantage of that. I will be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll have rankings on screen for all primary positions: running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, kicker, and defense. But those are only for half PPR, and they're only interpositional. So it doesn't take into account full PPR rankings, and it doesn't take into account flex rankings. But yeah, if you guys are interested, check out Underdog Fantasy. You can also check out the Patreon if, in fact, you've already signed up with me in a prior season or used somebody else's code in the past. You can always go ahead and check out the Patreon. Same services, just a monthly subscription, all that kind of jazz. Cleveland or Atlanta defense this week? I'll take Cleveland there, Cash Cardi. Carlos says, should I? Okay, so Carlos is still on. Carlos must have me muted, bro. He must be. He's asked that question 4 times. I've answered it twice, and he's still asking it. Hey, Andrew, half PPR, just need one. T. Higgins, Aaron Jones, Gabe Davis. Junior, that's a tough question. I understand why you're asking it, because all of them could play extremely well. All of them could be complete duds. If I'm playing one of the 3, under the assumption it's a half PPR, I'll play Aaron Jones. If it's a full PPR, I'd probably lean towards playing Gabe Davis. Thank you. All right, guys. Final questions here, and then I got to get out. Take care of a couple stuff. I'll be back tomorrow morning again. Ryan sends in a question. Ryan Truong says, I just traded DJ Moore, Kyle Pitts, Romeo Doubs, and Najee Harris to sell high, smart, for Mark Andrews, Terry McLaurin. Thoughts on the trade? Okay, well, let's put it this way. DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin have identical value rest of season in my mind, especially once Justin Fields returns. So I think, and maybe even DJ Moore has more value, to be honest, with Justin Fields returning. And then Kyle Pitts, okay, so then if it's Romeo Doubs and Kyle Pitts and Najee Harris for Mark Andrews, like a 3-for-1 kind of deal. Technically, if you're in desperate need of a tight end, I'm okay with it. I think Najee, Mark Andrews, I mean, like Najee and Kyle Pitts, Dobbs is kind of an extension. I'm okay with it. I don't dislike the trade. I think overall, you're getting identical value at wide receiver, maybe a little bit of a downgrade just so you can have some consistent play at tight end. I'm okay with it. I think it's fair. Do you like Stevenson or Ford this week? I'll take Ford. Thoughts on Bijan for Laporta and Ford? You in a standard full PPR league, I'd be careful with Ford, man. Kareem Hunt is really going to get himself a lot of opportunities as they continue. And that in itself does scare me. Carr or Howell, I have Carr ranked higher. Carr or Stroud, I have Carr ranked higher. But that'll be tomorrow morning. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'll be back tomorrow beginning at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you guys want to join us that early, you're welcome to. We'll be watching the game here on the channel. Obviously, I can't stream the game. I would have loved to stream the game and watch it alongside you guys, but of course, we'll just be co-watching it. I do appreciate you guys. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Outside of that, be sure to go ahead, click the like button before y'all leave. Greatly appreciate it. And until next time, let's see, what does it say? Gung Ho Joe says, on their dog fit. Okay, Underdog Fantasy doesn't work. I put in my deposit last week and never got my rankings. Check your, okay, so you have to check the email that is associated with your Underdog account, and you have to check your spam folder. If, in fact, you checked your spam folder and you signed up last week and you didn't get the rankings last Sunday, do me a favor, send me a DM on Twitter or Instagram within the next hour. I'll check it so that I can figure out what email you have that's associated with the Underdog so that I can take it to my higher-ups in terms of the guys that I work with via Underdog so that I can get that all settled for you, okay? Appreciate that, Gung-Ho. All right, a couple more questions. Last ones. Emily says, full PPR. I'm starting Hubbard in the flex, but I also have Brian Robinson, Nico Collins, Flowers, and Kareem Hunt. Is that the correct choice? In a full PPR scoring format, I think it's a really safe choice to play Hubbard. I think Hubbard probably scores himself 10 to 12 points, maybe more if he gets a little bit more, receiving utilization. I think Nico Collins can easily outscore him, though. I think he truly can. I think that's probably what I would go with. Aaron Jones or Kareem Hunt, half PPR. I'll play Aaron Jones there. Thoughts on Aaron Jones, please? Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Matt LaFleur said that he's literally going to be given, he's going to be let loose upon the defense. They're going to let him play the full capacity. And when they do, he's going to be an extremely better, fantasy option than he has been over the course of the last 3 weeks. All right, guys. Thank you everybody for watching. And until tomorrow morning, I'll see you guys. Peace.